Local stories, local people. We're taking you inside Western Mass news. It's the Even Better Western Mass podcast with Dave Madsen.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Wherever you are, hope you're doing well. It is the end of March. We look forward to April. Schools will be opening full time, at least here in Western Massachusetts and many, if not most communities. Let's hope that municipal office buildings in cities and towns and maybe even the Registry of Motor Vehicles will open up all of its offices to make things a little bit easier for all of us. Let's hope that happens in the not too distant future. Well, this week we're going to focus on Easthampton Neighbors. This is a nonprofit organization that's part of the Village Movement. That's a neighborhood-based membership organization that connects seniors to crucial services and social activities, allowing them to age in their own homes. My guest is Stephanie Kelly. She and her husband, Joe, founded the Easthampton Neighbors. We talk about that, the organization's needs, and the challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Here's my conversation with Stephanie Kelly. Stephanie, thank you for being a guest on the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
As we record this on a late winter day that seems like spring. So that's nice to see it. There's some hope for all of us, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about Easthampton Neighbors. What exactly is Easthampton Neighbors?
Okay, so let me tell you how the idea sprung to me. I actually grew up in Dorchester in a triple-decker. So what I remember and what I believe in is neighbors helping neighbors. I don't know if you remember the Prince Spaghetti commercial, but Anthony was out and the mother would hang out the third-story window and say, "Anthony Albedini, get home." Everybody did watch over everybody and everybody helped. And if somebody's toilet was plugged up, they'd call down the first level and say, "Get up here quick." Anyway, I've always had that vision to do. I wanted to spend my time doing something as a nonprofit in Easthampton and thought about it. And it was really lucky because what had started up was what we call the Village Movement. At the time I was thinking about it about 5 years ago. It started in Beacon Hill. That was actually the first village across the country. Now there are over 300 villages. And what a village is really technically the way we grew up in Dorchester. It's like the community helping each other. We have members of the community, and that can be people of any age. They just all join up and they support everybody. And then we have what we call the seniors who need special services. Those are the folks that are over 55 and live in Easthampton, and they need, little help around the house. They need chores, they need groceries, shopping, they need things done so they could remain at home. And then we have the volunteers. And the volunteers are part of the community too, obviously. What we do is we match up the volunteers with the members that need services. So I saw this idea, and we had just actually moved here to Easthampton. And I said, oh, that would be great, because number one, we have a demographic here, a lot of isolated seniors, a lot of people who are on their own. We had just done a needs assessment with the city. Brendan Rogers and I collaboratively worked together with the Council on Aging. And the needs assessment was showing that we're exponentially growing our demographic in about 30 years, 1950, whatever it was going to be, like 50%, it's going to be half over 60 years old. And so we looked at each other and said, Council on Aging is not going to be able to handle this. Other services in the area, other elder services, it's just all going to be over the top. People are going to need so many things. And the village provides that. The village, again, they're all over the country and they're tailor-made to the community. So we decided we would set one up here in Easthampton, and it would be no fee, which means they would pay nothing, these residents who are over 55 and need help. And we would have the volunteers come in, as I said, and do the services they need. So that was my idea, to set it up here. And I just went for it, found out there was one also happening in Northampton. And since then, they've mushroomed around us. Actually, Massachusetts is an epicenter. There's like 40 in Massachusetts, because again, it started in Beacon Hill. And then we got them, Central Mass, around Eastern Mass, and then out here. So we started having them out here too. And so it was a good time to start it. So that's when it all started happening. And that was the idea. And it's a national movement. We have a village to village network, which we belong to. So we have samples of bylaws and samples of all kinds of policy issues that we can go there for resources. And they also have national conferences and ways that we can help each other out with blogs, and we talk to each other across the country. There's all these villages everywhere, and again, they're all tailored to that community. So they're different. Amenities are offered in some cities. For example, the Beacon Hill one offers many services that Northampton and Easthampton and Amherst around here we wouldn't want or need. They swim in the pools at
Sure.
Wellesley College, and they have lecturers come in, and they pay heavy fees. They pay over $1,000 just to join. So we're a different, we tailor-made it to Easthampton. Brendan and I, the Council on Aging Director, sat around. We started a steering committee. This was in 2018. And actually, we've only been around a year and a half. We formed our bylaws and we did our 501c3, all the governance in July of 2019. So technically, it's only been a year and a half that we've been around.
So you were really just getting started, and then, well, a year ago, COVID-19 hit. What's the impact been on you?
Oh my goodness. So we were all ready to what you call launch. And if you look at our website, you'll see that there's a whole array of services. Again, if you go across the country, you'll see most of the services are pretty much the same if you have the same core mission that we do. So, grocery shopping, as I said, picking up prescriptions, moving the trash, getting the mail, things that maybe someone's incapacitated in the house. It depends on how physically mobile they are. So yeah, we were all ready to open up and launch, and you call it, a big array, and everybody gets to do also their activities are huge, social activities. Northampton had already been launched for 3 years when COVID hit. And again, we were just ready to do it. And yes, COVID hit. So we decided that we would still go ahead. We decided that our demographics were showing, and again, the surveys that we had done with the needs assessment showed that so many people are isolated. COVID was going to make it worse. So we got ourselves some good insurance, covered ourselves, because obviously you have to worry about liability and, of course, driving people too. We decided we would drive people at first to their medical appointments and, to any emergencies they needed. And other villages shut down. I have regional talks every other week, and we all, contribute and participate in these discussions. And a lot of the villages just shut down because they were nervous, because they were cautious, because a lot of them, most of their volunteers are even older. So the volunteers got hesitant to even go do the services. So we just decided to persevere. We actually, we started getting volunteers, and it was interesting because our volunteers tend to be younger. They're considerably younger, some in their 40s and their 50s, and they have some teenagers that started helping. So what was interesting for us is we decided, okay, let's go ahead, because these younger people, they're not invincible, but they felt lower risk. They weren't like the other seniors who were afraid to go out with COVID. So we continued it, and we had, up until about the end of November, beginning of December is when the governor decided to phase back again. If you remember the big uptick.
Yeah. And
so at that point, we repositioned and said, so if you look at our website, you'll see we had to put on a flash. We've temporarily halted the medical appointments. So up until that point, we did do all of it, a lot of it, and a lot in collaboration with Council on Aging. We're delivering meals, we're delivering mass. We did it with them because they had a lot more drivers, and we were sharing our members with members from COA. It's a great system, because it's like meeting all the seniors' needs, because we all collaborate and get together with the different services. So anyway, then we had to stop, but we just stopped the medical because it was too dangerous. It was dangerous. It was, our volunteers were at risk, and the people, there's no vaccine then, obviously. And what happened was, as we went through that month of January, when it was so bad, we still did some emergencies. If people, like somebody needed to get to the emergency room, for example, we still did that. As a matter of fact, Joe, my husband, who started this with me, is a physician. So he would, and he actually has, at this point, we have a medical team. We have like 6 retired physicians, a couple nurses, a social worker, psychiatric social worker. So they decided we can still do this. We can protect each other. We can still get the emergencies out there. We have people since then who have actually gone into hospice even, and they've gone to take care of them at the house. And we started up the wellness calls and then the social visits. At first we did wellness calls. In other words, checking on everybody, how are you doing? And then if somebody had, well, obviously a crying episode, for example, you knew this person's in trouble. Yeah. So what started happening then was this medical team, it's a nice core of people. They were already meeting on Zoom and planning what they were going to do. They started organizing themselves and going out to have these social visits. At that point, the weather was still okay. We had some warmish weather in December, and before it all shut down with the winter. And then they resorted to phone calling. But the point was, it was ongoing, that these real lonely people, Dave, we took care of them. In the meantime, we got a grant. We wrote for a grant that we got. It's called Massachusetts Service Alliance. It's a volunteer state alliance, and it's a COVID Resiliency Grant. So they gave it to us because we were still open. So it was great because the line items were, PPE, medical services equipment, everything we needed. So it was perfect. So we said, okay, we can still continue. We've got the insurance, we've got this grant. And there were 3 parts to the grant. There is food insecurity. So you get food to the people, number 1, obviously. Number 2 is the medical appointments or any kind of telemedicine or whatever they needed, because don't forget, COVID obviously, again, was in an uptick. So Joe, my husband, and Jan, and a couple other, and the medical team started doing telemedicine. So that was part of the grant too, keeping in contact, making sure if someone needed to go to the hospital. It was really intense, very intense. Yeah. And the third part of the grant is called social isolation, as I said, trying to identify these people who are by themselves, and most of them are female. We did the needs assessment. They've lost their husbands, they're alone. The families spread all over the country, but they want to stay in their house. Again, that's our mission. Our mission is to keep them home, to engage in the home as long as they can. They don't have the means, and nor do they want to go to a congregate housing. Sure. So that was the third part of the grant. And what we did at that point is we put a loneliness tool online. There's a loneliness tool that the medical team, again, it's from UCLA. And it's a series of questions to find out. We started calling our folks. And it's amazing in 20 minutes what you can find out. They trained me to do it too. It's fascinating to sit there and ask these questions, and you can find out how lonely people are. You can find out their level, even if they're at that cusp level, that threshold for depression even. Yeah. So since then, what we've done was we actually just entered collaboration now with, it's called the Pioneer Valley Memory Care Initiative. It's a dementia program out of Cooley Dickinson. So we're the most recent city to join them. It's very fun and fascinating to be able to get our folks now. They're going to get treated. They're going to see the specialist in dementia, and they're going to train our volunteers to go to the houses and to figure out who is in this stage of dementia, what stage. They're going to come back and report to the physician at Cooley Dickinson. We're going to have monthly meetings. So it's really been great. So I would say COVID had some silver linings for us. Even though it was frustrating, and even though at times we kept going ahead, we never had any issues, thank goodness. We never had, quote, somebody who had COVID drove a car and got accused, none of that.
Sure.
We just developed along the way a lot of these, as I say, that between the grant and now with Cooley Dickinson, these programs started developing. People started calling us saying, oh, we could use your members. And the most recent one is a sales program. It's a falls risk reduction program. In other words, this is a professor down at Springfield College, and she's a physical therapist and a specialist in falls. And as you know, that's one of the number one things we deal with folks my age.
My age too. We tend to lose we think we have good balance. Then all of a sudden we learn that no, it's not all that good.
Oh, we don't. We try to ride our bike again, or try going ice skating with your grandchild. Oh my God. How can I not skate anymore, right? But she's great because she just got this grant. And so she needed some Easthampton people. She teaches them, this step-by-step program about balance, exercises. She takes them through this step-by-step program. So we're also doing that, which I am really proud that through all this, we managed to survive. We managed to, as I said, concentrate on those areas that are so important. And to get people, even though they haven't had activities, they at least feel like we're checking on them. We did develop some pen pal stuff. And again, talk about the Girl Scouts. Oh my gosh, they've been integral. It's the troop. It must be the troop with your granddaughter. They called me and asked if they could make Valentine cards, right? So I gave them the list. We met up and they had all these, really was fun. We took pictures because they had all their handicraft stuff, and they made 75 cards for our folks. They delivered them. And to this day, every day I get calls from our members saying, oh, I love my Valentine card. It's up on the refrigerator. I look at it every day. It reminds me of my grandchildren because they don't have their grandchildren here.
Yeah, that was the other aspect of it. That
exactly.
They couldn't see their grandkids. Yeah,
exactly. So we took the Girl Scouts pictures, we put them on Facebook. So every week we have a special child who is focused to showcase, to show her Valentine card. And then we show the person who got the card. We're trying to pair them up now. It's been great for social media. And also the Girl Scouts are going to do care baskets. Right now they're working on a bunch of care baskets that we're going to deliver to everybody. They're going to have puzzles and postcards and again, ways of getting pen paling with them. A couple of them have already bridged that gap and they've made it ongoing. It isn't just one Valentine card. For example, this one little one we have, Amelia, has already set up with one of the seniors and she's writing to her frequently. And as you know, people our age love handwritten letters. It's so important.
Just the little things that I guess many of us take for granted, that when you're alone, you don't have that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, it sounds like there are programs that you would have instituted, but COVID fast-tracked them for you.
Exactly. The ones we left aside, obviously, and they were big time in Northampton and Amherst, all around us, again, because they launched before COVID, before we did, are the interest groups, Dave. The walkabouts where you go out and you meet up with friends, you have a leader and then you walk everywhere. Or if someone's interested, hiking Mount Tom, you can hike up Mount Tom. They were doing coffee clatches, meeting at the coffee shop, and, a lot of intermingling and communication and socialization. That's what we had to draw. Correct. You can't have people meeting up during COVID. We still can't. It's still not clear when we can. We're just going to wait it out. I'm not sure. You look at the new guidelines and more of us are getting vaccinated, but that doesn't mean, number one, we all are. And it doesn't mean that this strain business is over with.
Now, the other thing you were talking about too was, in addition to this, is helping some of these folks get their vaccinations.
Right.
That it hasn't been an easy thing to do, and I know you were saying you've gone through some of the frustration of trying to get people registered to do these.
Exactly. They did have a buddy program, And believe it or not, we couldn't get enough people who wanted to go with them to be their
Right.
buddy. In other words, you could be like, say, my mom was here. I could take my mom in when they opened up that over 75, remember? They said you could bring someone 75 and over if you were younger than 75, if you were bringing that person. It was called the buddy system, the companion. So that worked for a little bit, but quite frankly, we ran out of folks who had relatives and close enough friends that would drive them. There's a lot of isolation. Again, there are a lot of people who just don't know anybody. So then we started doing the whole phone thing ourselves for them. What we do is we take down the data, then we try to, catch an appointment. But like I said, the last week, you can't. There are just none available. What's happened is the 65 and year older category has overtaken that first category.
That you look at that now, and just thinking of it, that you would think that someone in their infinite wisdom in the state would look at Easthampton Neighbors and go, why can't we work through you? Instead of having these poor folks having to try to get their own appointments on the computer, or having you do the same thing and going through that frustration to kind of help navigate the process for them. I've got a lot of issues with the way the state rolled this out. And I just think it shouldn't be, at this point in time in your life, for the folks that you serve, it shouldn't be this hard.
Exactly. Right. Not only that, it's creeping them more into more depression.
Yeah.
And it makes them even more, they can't see the grandchildren when they finally could visit. Now they still can't really visit because they haven't been vaccinated. So that's where it's at right now, right? So we're trying to weather through that, correct? Trying our best, doing our best, again, working collaboratively with Council on Aging because they're great. So to go back to the GAP services again, what we do is we share up, we share with each other. Like they ran out of drivers, we had a couple drivers, they ran out of meals to deliver to people, we would go get them at Highland Valley. It's really been great. In other words, again, another silver lining I want to say of COVID, because it was so desperate to get people food. So we don't just do grocery shopping, we do meals too, because some people home cooked. Some people aren't cooking now either.
Sure.
And several of them have fallen and they have walkers, and several of them are in that early stage dementia. So they've been told not to cook, even though it's safe for them to still be at home. They still need to be checked on. They still need meals once in a while. So yes, because we have those services that we do. And again, we go to the house, especially in good times and real good times with no COVID. Whereas if you have a Council on Aging, the seniors go to the Council on Aging building. See, so that's a difference with the village concept. The village concept is that you go to the person's house, you do the things they need to let them stay there so they can age in place, so they can live vibrant lives at home because that's what they want to do.
Sure. That sense of independence.
Yes.
Now, you talked about the grant that you received, but as far as overall fundraising for you, obviously as a nonprofit, you rely on donations. What's COVID's impact been on that for you?
Horrible. just a standstill. I would say to the lead up, again, we've been around a year and a half, and the 6 months leading up to COVID that we were there before it all got really bad, we did manage. We got banks and we got a couple realtors. We even got a couple of what we call sustainable donors. In other words, as you know, you can count on them year after year. We got River Valley Co-op, they're building the new co-op in Easthampton. She's actually on our board, the person who's the head of marketing there. So she was helping. So we got some partnerships with River Valley Co-op, with Lathrop, Lathrop community in Easthampton. She's on our board too. One of the people who is at Lathrop is on our board. So we did get from them a software grant. In other words, I did a presentation. That was when I was able to get out and give the presentation and talk about what we do. And right on the spot, the CEO said, if I gave you 5,000, what would you do with that? It was a good thing I was standing on my feet and I was ready. So that's how we got our software, which was really great. Same with Beverage Family Foundation. I don't know if you know them, but they're great. We interviewed with them on Zoom. And by the way, when I interviewed with them on Zoom, it was like about a year ago to this day, I had COVID very severely.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I didn't even know it at that point. Remember when we didn't know what it was? And I was walking around with a pounding headache, and it was beginning to be, beginning to be aware of it. And here's my husband's in medicine. But anyway, I'll never forget, I had that Zoom that day because it already had reverted to Zoom. He had said, "Oh, I think we better do this by Zoom," the president of Beverage. And so all I remember sitting there with the whole board of Beverage Found and answering these questions. And he did the same thing at the end. He said, "What would you do if I gave you?" So I was ready because I had another thing in my mind. But anyway, then it fizzled. Right? I mean, after that couple of successes, then COVID hit. And as I said, we did get that small grant for the Resiliency Grant. But since then, it's like nothing, and you can't go to the restaurants. They're in such dire straits. You can't go to businesses even. They haven't been open for so long.
It does. I mean, it's a house of cards for sure. And I think we should mention the Beverage Foundation. If memory serves me correct, those are the folks that owned Stanley Home Products.
Yes.
For so many years. And Stanley Home, of course, a huge employer in Easthampton now where Eastworks is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I taught at Westville State, and they that was that whole Stanley Park and the
down
Stanley.
there.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, I know. They're wonderful. And yes, he's just a good reader of people. He could just tell that COVID was coming about, and we were just starting, and he trusted us to try it. It was very fascinating. But then again, a lot of other people, quite frankly, if you're not in operation, as you know, they don't see your track record. Right. They don't feel like giving you money. They don't, and then COVID hits, and then you're really stuck. So to be honest with you, donations now, a real issue, particularly when we're no fee. See, we don't charge anything for the seniors because we don't want them to have a barrier, because the demographics show us that we're way below median income. You know the demographics of Easthampton. We're a manufacturing, working class community. So we didn't want to have a fee. But you put yourself in a hard place, because if they're not paying a fee, you're not establishing that revenue stream right from the get-go. A lot of the other villages, as I said, they charge, $500 in Cambridge, $1,000 in Wellesley, $1,500, so they don't even need to go solicit, really.
Yeah. They
just get their we have 110 members, by the way. We did so well. 110 through this.
That's what I was going to ask you. That I would guess with some seniors, there is a reluctance to ask for help because in many ways they may feel like they're giving up their independence. So in some way, so some people are recommended to you, and do you seek people out too?
Yes. Again, what we did, we made some good decisions. We got a good marketing person, and because I know nothing about marketing and branding and all that new stuff, She did it. She did a really good thing. We gave out refrigerator magnets, sent out randomly. We took the precincts in Easthampton and took 200 random, because we couldn't do all of them because that would have been astronomically expensive. But we did enough so that a lot of people got these magnets. And then we started getting calls that, my friend has a magnet. Can I have a magnet? So we got some extras. So I started sending them out. But that worked really well. So what that did was hit a lot of people, because we're not meeting. Before COVID, I was going to the COA, to the spaghetti dinners, because again, see, we have a virtual office. We don't have a building. We don't have a place, whereas COA has a building. So I was going there and, giving my spiel about Easthampton Neighbors and how we do the services that they get overwhelmed with. And we do services in the home, which they don't do. But then it stopped. I couldn't talk to people anymore. So I couldn't get the word out. And that's why we had to do the social media. Again, our marketing person's really good at that, but we're still of the age, as you know, I'm of the age that, I don't know, social media, okay, I get it, I guess. She gets all excited because there's 5,000 hits, and I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? I don't know. So they read it, but you don't hear back necessarily. But I guess we're doing okay because, again, we have 100 members through all this, and we have 38 volunteers, Dave. And, they have to go through a whole vetting process. They have to get Corey checked, and, they have to have an orientation. So I get on my professor hat. But again, I couldn't meet with them. So I had to put it online, which is kind of boring, but, it works like this. You go through, what do you do as a volunteer? What does it mean to meet the people? On and on and on. And then they get a little certificate and we give them a badge. But that's worked. But that's all online. We had to transform that. And, that's what's happened, as you know, when we were talking before about the teachers, professors, all my friends at Westfield State, thank goodness I retired because I would not have liked all remote.
Yeah.
It's just not my thing. I mean, I remember doing some online classes, but oh my gosh, they had to do all remote. And I just wouldn't have liked it. And our poor seniors, see, we don't even have, Brendan guesses is about 30% who have computers. Never mind knowing Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough enough to have to go through these processes. And when you say, okay, let's do it this way, and with seniors, well, with anybody of any age, human contact is so important, and that element has been missing for a year now.
Exactly. Exactly. So what's going to happen when we open up? I'm hoping that, there's been some articles lately that people don't know what to do, that they're going to be afraid. It could be with our segment. It's going to take them a little bit.
Yeah.
They're going to have to go gradually back into it, I think. Maybe we'll have little walking groups. I don't think we're going to have anything, big, huge splash events because I don't think they can tolerate it yet.
There's always, I think you're right. There's going to be this fear with this, and I look at it too. And it's when this first started, and I was doing reports on this, talking about the most vulnerable people, those people over 60, and I thought, oh, that's me. That there does seem to be, and going into a crowded place, and you like to think that you're open about things, but I can understand that fear, and that yes, the state can open everything up, but people still have to be comfortable with it.
Exactly. So I don't know what we're going to do moving ahead, to be honest, donation whatever wise. I guess I'm just going to try to tap those young people we have who are in marketing. Again, I'm going to depend on them. Hopefully something like River Valley can be done together, maybe even sharing all of us in Easthampton because they're going to launch soon. They're going to open soon. And I'm hoping that would work because I don't know how else to attach ourselves. Again, we've been thinking we would like to help the restaurants and the businesses. So maybe we could say we'll guarantee so much towards, the proceeds, because you can't expect the restaurants to give all their food stuff either.
No.
So, but to create some business for them would be very helpful.
So we look beyond this, and obviously everything depends on how the state opens things up and how people feel about it. Now, if as far you talk about members now, are you taking new members, or is that kind of on hold?
No, absolutely taking new members. And again, it's a very simple process because there's no fee. All I do is I talk to them on the phone. As a matter of fact, you can do it online on the website, but they don't have computers. So they call in. We have a number on our magnet, and they call or however else they find out about us. Sometimes a child or somebody will hear about us, and that happens quite frequently. A relative will call, a daughter will call. They call from all the states. Someone called me the other day from New Jersey and said, I heard about you, saw you on the net, and can you help my mother? And so I take the information down. It's pretty simple. This is the other thing you have to be careful of. They're very into, as you know, giving out their private information. And that's been another difficulty, by the way, with the vaccination. Some of them require your health card. Well, the poor seniors sitting there, and they've heard all about scams, and they're afraid to give. And I try to calm them down, and I say, well, I can't, you have to be a member before we can get you services because we won't be covered by insurance. Some of them, quite frankly, end up not understanding.
Yeah.
They just don't join whatever, but that's very infrequently lately. Most of them will join. So yeah, just last week we had 5 join up and finding out from different ways. So yes, we can keep taking anyone because, as long as they're over 55 and they need services, that's great. You don't pay anything. Now, if you want to be a member to help the community, that's just important too. In other words, join up, even though you're not yet that age, someday you will be, and join up because you want to help. And that's what we expect, donations, but do we get them? No. No, even though we've put out, I don't know what else to do. We're having, again, as I said, some kind of brainstorming, this fundraising committee's meeting, because we have to figure it out. Like, how do we get people to understand, even if it's $5? I mean, we're taking care of your parents here. I have a hard time talking to the children and telling them, you need to give us a donation. Because, it's hard to say to somebody.
Well, you would think too, if you are looking after their parents, it's really peace of mind for them. And when you talk about the trust, I suppose one of your best marketing tools would be people who are already members talking to their friends. But of course,
Exactly.
with COVID-19, there's probably not a lot of that going on.
Exactly. They're in their houses and they're alone. The woman I talked to today that I set up groceries for her, by the way, is 92 with a walker and hasn't been out of her house for 3 years.
Oh my God.
It's not even COVID. She's just immobile. We have several like that who are completely, locked in their houses. So of course, somehow we have to get to them. Somehow we have to get there. We have one woman who has 6 people volunteering for her. Somebody gets her, she fell and broke her hip. And she's in rehab now in her own house because she wanted to be. And so we're trying to create all those services again that other, agencies can't do. They don't go to the house like this. And
Sure.
of course they would charge. And so we have somebody who lives in the neighborhood, which is wonderful. So she picks up her mail and she has her 10-year-old son, Jack, do it lately because he's bored with staying home with remote. So he walks the dog. I made a big badge for him so he could have Easthampton Neighbors badge. So he walks the dog and gets the mail. Then we have to get her rubbish. We have to do her groceries, as I said. She called the other day and said, "Oh, Stephanie, can you get someone to come over because I have a big chair I ordered online and I have to get it into my daughter's car." I'm thinking, oh my God, I'll try. But I put it out there because that's what the software does. You can post whatever you want. We had 4 takers. People thought it was just cute and funny. It was a one-off, go by
Sure.
and help her move her. She got an office chair for her daughter and to surprise her. But it was sitting in her kitchen. So they had to move it through the small door out into, but it was icy. She couldn't have done that, obviously. And she's the one in the house getting all the other services.
So you're looking for volunteers now too from all walks of life because
Yes.
there's no end to what you need help with.
You're absolutely correct. The volunteers come from everywhere. And as I said, we have a medical group going. We have a poetry group going, which is fascinating. One of the older women writes poetry. She's a member and the volunteers helping because another one joined up who's hearing impaired. So she wanted to write poetry too, but she couldn't hear the poems. So the volunteer goes over with the batch that they've all contributed and she brings it to Cindy's house and reads the poems. So it's very cool. And we started member stories too. What we're doing now, we're doing member stories. So what we do is we ask them, we're starting to archive them, Dave. It's fascinating. If you look on our website, you'll see every week our social media person posts another one. So this one is about a woman who has been in Easthampton for 30 years, but she was born in Germany. She was there during Dresden bombing. She literally can't hear. So she arrives here, brings up her whole family. Everyone's from Easthampton. So she has this wealth of stories and information from Easthampton early on, but also the German aspect. So her granddaughter called me and said, "Oh, I would really like it if we could hook her up with someone because she's so lonely. And I have to do my remote school. She's in high school. The granddaughter called me. It was so cool. So we set her up with this little, we call it the poetry group. So she writes she's even writing in German now because obviously, you know how you go back to your original language when you get that old. And we found one high schooler who was learning German. So he's also writing. So we have a volunteer who collects all these little bits of poetry and little postcards, and she goes around and sees them when she can. Again, some people don't have a front porch. It's got to be very safe, or she'll drop them off in the mailbox if she can't
Fascinating.
see them. Yeah. But so again, I look forward to the weather. We have some decisions to make. We're gonna have decisions to make every week now, with CDC coming out with guidelines. And yes, the weather's better, so that means what? The social visits now can go back to the front lawn, where the lawn chairs are 6 feet apart, and they can talk outside.
One of the things, I've heard through this too is that, folks who may be at the early stages of dementia, as long as they had contact with other people,
Hmm.
they were doing fairly well. But now you take folks and you isolate them in their homes.
Hmm.
And in many instances, I guess probably a perfect example of this, where they're talking about Tony Bennett
Hmm.
and how at 94, yes, he had signs of dementia, but now that he's been in his house and hasn't been able to do his music, it's had an impact on him. And it just made me think of all these other seniors too, who've been really almost held prisoner in their own homes
Hmm.
because of this COVID thing. And so I'm sure once this opens up, there's going to be a lot more that you're going to see yourself doing.
Oh, absolutely. Again, this program that we just joined up with, as I said, it's really well organized. This Dr. Starr, she's at Cooley Dickinson, as I said, she's a specialist in gerontology and dementia. So she has a huge grant, and Easthampton is just another community that just joined. So yes, as I said, she's going to take our Easthampton patients, whom she's identified, by the way. We don't do any of that.
Yeah.
She already has them in her practice. And then what happens, as I said, they're going to train our volunteers from our medical team who want to do this. They'll start going to the houses. And when the weather gets better, correct, she'll direct us. Like, she can say, oh yeah, now it's time. There's all these progress reports you do, and you have this portfolio on each one, so we'll know. There'll come a time when Beverly is at a point now, yeah, she can go for a walk, and yeah, she can meet with this other first level dementia patient. You're right. So I look forward to that, and I'm learning a ton because it's never been my area. We have two other people who just said they want to join up with them, and they're 30 years old, 35. She's young kids. She just knows nothing about it and wants to do it because she never had a grandmother. Her grandmother died early. Everybody always has a story.
Yeah.
Like when they join our board, they always say, I'm joining because. It's almost always, my mom died too early, or my mom died too late and I didn't know how to take care of her, or I didn't know, well, the things then that I should. And so they want to do it again. They want to do it, learn the right way. They want to experience this with an older person because they missed it. In my case, my mother was, I'm way past when my mother died. So that I wanted to do it because I didn't have that opportunity
Sure.
to take
Yeah.
care
I
of
mean,
her.
we do all have our stories for
Yeah,
sure. And, and
exactly.
what I find too is Easthampton is such an eclectic community that, you
Mhm.
have folks who've lived there all of their lives. And then with the recent growth in the town, with the city now, having
Yeah.
grown up around here, I always still call it a town. But the fact that you've got all these new people coming in, and when you talk about the stories, they're just
Mhm.
endless.
They are. They are. And that's been, again, a great, on our Facebook page. Everybody comments and loves the stories.
We've touched a lot of ground, talked
Mhm.
about a lot of different things. I think, more importantly now is if people want to help, if they want to donate, if they want to volunteer, or if they want to join to become a member, what should they do?
Okay, I can give you a simple number. That's the best way first, right? Okay, so this is the number to call: 413-225-1338. And what that is our call manager, which is very cool. So our software works so that when you call in, it's Google voicemail, whatever you have to say. We've even had emergencies lately with some of our members, and we've helped them. You call that number, you tell them what you want, and then they'll just refer us around. Whoever's on call gets back to me, or some days I'm on call. So you'll get a hold of us that way. Also on the website, it's www. And it's easy to remember, the whole big long thing, Easthampton Neighbors, all one word, no uppercase, easthamptonneighbors.org. So you can see what's going on, what we're about. And again, we'll be lifting that, probably the big halt, probably will be changing to opening up completely. I don't know when, but hopefully soon. So it's easthamptonneighbors.org. And then we have Facebook at Easthampton Neighbors. Again, capital E and capital N. So you go on Facebook and see our Facebook page, Facebook at Easthampton Neighbors, no spaces, capital E, capital N.
Now, is there anything we haven't touched on that you want to make sure folks watching or listening know?
Oh, let's see. I think you brought up the really good suggestion that I had here, huge letters. If you want to help, you want to join, I could just add the committees there, actually. In other words, you can be a member, obviously, to support. You can be a volunteer to help. You can be a member who needs services, or you can join one of our committees. Again, we need people with talents who just even maybe want to spend some time with us because they don't have, maybe they're still working. So what they could do is they could join one of our committees, and they're on the website. We have outreach committee, we have member committee, we have, say for example, right now we could really use someone with accounting, financial skills. All boards need that, right? And so if you wanted to, let's just say as a consulting, just join us and help us once in a while with our 990s, whatever. That would be so important for us to be part of a committee. And the other fun stuff too, again, I want to emphasize that what we're trying to do to go back to that neighbors helping neighbors, that traditional neighborhood, that village that we're trying to create, so that when we open up here with COVID and the weather, that you join the seniors. Seniors are part of the community. And I think particularly after all this spell with the COVID, you could be so helpful just to show up if we have an event or if we have something that we advertise. Yes, I think it would be great if you could come and show your support for these folks. It's been hard on all of us, but it's been really hard on these folks who've been, penned up and they're depressed at this point. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Stephanie, thank you for all you do. As us baby boomers continue to age.
Yes, exactly.
I keep saying that I'm going to be 70 this year, that 70 is the new 60, but then some mornings I go, no, 70 is the new 80.
No, I agree with you. I agree. Yeah, we're there, Dave. But yeah, there's so much to do. And there's so many people our age who aren't as physically active as we are.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? And socially active and having people around them, correct.
And I think one of the things that when we first started to talk about this is Easthampton, having grown up there, my grandparents grew up there, my mother did, that Easthampton was a community that was built on neighborhoods.
Right.
And neighbors helping neighbors. So this is really, you're taking it back to the way it was.
Yeah.
And the way it should have always been.
Exactly. Yeah. The Plains, when they ask where you're from, they say the Plains. Yeah. From the Plains neighborhood. Exactly. So it's all set up. It's all here.
My thanks to Stephanie Kelly for being my guest on this week's edition of the Even Better Western Mass podcast. Now, for more information about Easthampton Neighbors, you can visit their website, easthamptonneighbors.org. Well, that does it for us. Thanks for watching or listening. Stay safe, stay well, and if you can, join us next week.